good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Allow us to begin this interaction this day of your time by once again thanking each and every one of you for co-creating this interaction in this way on this day. Each and every time your civilization is willing to open up a dialogue with our civilization, it enhances and increases our ability to interact with you in many other ways on many other levels as well. It also acts to co-create a new reality between us, a reality, a dimension of experience that is different from our own and different from your own, a third dimension of reality that bit by bit and day by day, as these interactions take place, becomes more and more solid and allows us to create together a place wherein we may one day interact face to face in a very different way. We also, in having these interactions and in you allowing them, get to see and experience through each and every one of you that many more ways that the infinite creation has of expressing itself through each and every one of your unique perspectives. This, therefore, expands our understanding of infinite creation, and therefore it is a gift for our civilization to be allowed to interact with yours, so we thank you for this gift. We would like to begin this dialogue by opening up a little bit of a brief foundation or understanding for what can take place this day of your time. Now, we recognize that there are perhaps some of what you might call specific purposes to some of the things that you want to discuss, and that is all well and good. But we will lay down a foundation right now that will let you know this. We have a very specific relationship with your people, a very specific relationship and responsibility in how it is that we interact with each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively. We recognize that there are many, many, many different belief systems upon your planet, many different styles of expression. We cannot, therefore, interact with you in any way, shape, or form that would discount, interfere, or remove the responsibility of your species in bringing to fruition the choices it has made, playing out the processes that it has decided are necessary for the evolution of your society. We are here to reflect to you certain things. We are interacting with you to share certain perspectives that may give you an opportunity to see within yourself more of what it is you contain, to know more about yourself, to allow us to reflect to you certain ideas you may already know, but perhaps as a civilization have forgotten about. We are here sometimes to discuss what might appear to be new information with you, but again, never in a way that in any way, shape, or form calls out, aggrandizes, or builds up any belief system or any approach as being more valid than any other belief system or approach. You must understand, fundamentally, all truths are true. And the truth is made of all truth. Now, there may be certain ideas that have a little bit more efficacy, as you may say, in certain applications in your day-to-day reality. They may not necessarily be germane, some of these ideas, to manifestation in your reality, maybe not as probable of a manifestation as other ideas might be. But your reality is changing every day. As many of you now know, there are many different kinds of discoveries, many different kinds of realizations and ideas that are opening up new fields of awareness, new understandings of your consciousness, and therefore your reality, your physical, material reality, is going to become a lot more slippery, as you say. Space and time are losing their grip upon you because you are the creators of space and time. You are the creators of the physical reality in which you think you exist. And as you change your idea of yourself, as you expand beyond the notion that you are merely physical entities, and explore other realms of consciousness and other levels of consciousness within you, so too will your physiological reality become that expanded, that nebulous, that fluid, that transmutational and transitional. And of course, it would be no surprise that at this time of exploring your consciousness in a transmutational way, that you would begin to see reflections in your society of transmutational science. Everything that you do, everything that you create, every endeavor, scientific, economic, social, or otherwise, that you go into, is always going to reflect where you are at in your understanding and relationship to your own consciousness. So when you find that you have now discovered the concept of superconductivity, as you say, it is because your very beings, your very bodies, are becoming more superconductive, which means you're becoming more aligned, more synchronized in that context. And thus you are capable, once you have made that kind of a change within yourself, of reflecting those changes in the discoveries that you make in your outer physiological reflective reality. You must simply remember in everything that we will discuss that your outer physical reality is not outer, it is inner. It's just a reflection of you at every given moment, individually and collectively. So if you find, as you view your outer physical reality, that there are things about it you would prefer to change, all you really need to do that is to change something about yourself, and you will see that change take place unerringly and effortlessly. And all your explorations and all your ideas, no matter how they may manifest, scientifically or otherwise, are all going to be the result of the way you change the idea of how you see yourself and what you know is possible in your dimension of experience. So we thank you for allowing us to lay that foundational perspective this day of your time. And once again, in return now for the gift that you have given us in allowing us to communicate with you in this way on this day, I ask in return, what way may I now be of service to you?
Sure.
You.
As you know,
Good day. What happens to good day?
Nice to see you here again.
Thank you. I am not there, but I know what you mean.
I know your energy is here, okay? As you know, I've talked to you before about my MS condition.
Yes.
And I am at a spot right now where I've completed 3 months of the white powder from David Hudson.
Oh, right.
I'm getting started with another white powder that is...
What effect have you observed so far, if any?
I have a lot of strength.
Okay.
I feel like I'm stronger. However,
right.
the things that so trouble me is I get these pain attacks in my arm and
Okay.
I feel quite wobbly.
Wobbly.
Sweat at night, yeah.
All right, and the night sweat.
Right,
All right.
In starting the new powder, it's supposed to have higher electromagnetic qualities and...
Electromagnetic qualities.
Electromagnetic.
Hey, there is a difference in this, in that electromagnetism is simply one manifestation of how etheric energy manifests into your physiological domain. Electromagnetic version of that expression is a little bit closer to the original source of the etheric energy, not so much translated into physical reality, but still, shall we say, maintaining a bridge to the original etheric template, and thus a little bit more malleable, a little bit more capable of functioning as a template to rearrange the things going on in your physiological reality, since physical reality takes its cue from the template that is initiated by your consciousness in etheric reality first. So the substance you are referring to has a little bit more of the idea of connection to electromagnetic patterns of energy, which allow a little bit more malleability, manipulatability in your physiological reality for the desired effects you wish to achieve. You understand this?
Okay, I'm hearing you. Let me just ask you another question along the same line. You had recommended that in my meditations I focus on electromagnetic energy.
Electromagnetic, yes.
Yeah. Is this powder a step in the right direction to help me with the same?
Yes.
Okay. So, should I be waiting some number of days before I start the new white powder, or does it not matter?
How many days has it been since you have ceased ingestion of the other?
2. And I've been taking...
Wait 7 in total.
Wait 7 in total.
Okay.
Also,
for any transition, your body will need to recognize its ground state in between the ingestion of any one substance that causes massive alteration and any other substance that would assist you with massive alteration in that sense. Always allow the rest state, the number 7 in terms of your days being an appropriate length of time to allow your body to recalibrate its original ground state before taking on another reflection of transmutation.
Okay, thank you. Also, doses-wise, I had been taking 50 milligram per day doses, and the new quantities come 350 milligram. Yeah.
300 is sufficient.
300 is sufficient.
Yes, for you, in this case, at this time. It may be varied later, but for now you can begin with the idea of 300. If you find that it has only been regulated in 350, that will suffice. But we would recommend for now, at first, no higher on a daily basis.
Okay. And Can you share whether that will specifically help my pain in my arm, which has really been troubling me the last couple of weeks?
You will find that within about 2 to 3 weeks there will be some alleviation in that direction.
Okay, my wife particularly has been suggesting that I perhaps also just take some pain pills now to help me get more rest at night. I wake up a lot.
It is up to you. You can do that according to your belief system structure, or you can avail yourself of the meditation that we have already given you as well in conjunction with what it is you're going to be ingesting, along with, of course, very importantly, large amounts of pure water.
Large amounts of pure water?
Yes.
Okay.
At least what you would call 24 ounces a day, at least, if not more. One moment. Anything else?
I'm taking B6 and
in what concentration?
And potassium in some pills now.
In what concentration?
You know, I'm not quite sure anymore what they are. They're small tablets, and I'm taking 2 of those per day right now. Are those beneficial in helping?
They are somewhat beneficial, but relatively incidental at this time. A small amount is satisfactory for you. You may continue that if you wish. You don't have to, as you say in your language, overdo it.
Okay. So when I'm hearing you say that as far as the pains go, it is better for me to focus on the meditations perhaps.
And the water.
And the water rather than to try to get...
The water as a carrier of electromagnetic energy will more evenly distribute the blue-white light you see in your meditation and the electromagnetic energy inherent in the substance that you are about to take. Okay. Further distributing it throughout your system.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a lot of help.
Thank you. One moment. You were first.
Bashar?
Yes.
With this armed material, since it's found in all the kingdoms of nature...
One moment. You can be next. Proceed.
Since the armed materials are found in all the levels of nature,
we
know that rubidium and cesium cause the metals to separate into finer and finer particles. We know that plant substances do the same thing so that the metals can be used in the metabolism of plants. Does this drive all the way down and cause division all the way down to the level of the arms?
Yes. You will also find in your researches that one of the strongest catalytic transitional elements to aid and assist in all of these processes will be the substance that you call chromium.
And is the distortion effect on the single atoms, is that caused by the gases?
No.
What is the cause of the deformation?
The asymmetric spin inherent in the manifestation of etheric energy into physical materiality. There is an asymmetric spin inherent because, well, I'll put this in what you might call colloquial fashion first, and perhaps we can go into a little bit more detail further on. You must understand that the physical universe is fundamentally lopsided. It is slightly, ever so slightly biased in one direction, what you might call the positive or integrative direction. This is, again, colloquially put, because if you look at it as polarity, you have what you may call the positive side, you have what you may call the negative side, but you also have what you call the center, the place of perfect balance. But the place of perfect balance in the center still allows for the recognition of choice, whereas the negative and segregative polarity may not. So the positive allows for choice of integration, the balance allows for choice of integration, the negative does not. So the universe is slightly biased in the direction of integration, in one energetic direction. Everything that thus translates from the non-physical into the physical, from what you might call virtual particles into physical materialization, will exhibit this bias in one direction, and it will manifest as what you recognize as an asymmetrical spin. Because it is slightly more connected to one polarity frequency of the universe than another, and will eventually become lopsided as it spins, as it connects its energy in that way to the physical universal domain. This then initiates the spiral action of manifestation of physical materiality that you see represented in the mathematical constructs of nature, what you recognize as the golden proportions, golden spirals, Fibonacci sequences, and so forth as you have labeled them. This asymmetric spin is what allows physical materiality the ability to grow. Otherwise, if it were symmetrical, physical reality would be static. Does that make some sense to you?
Yes, it does. We've been in the mining business trying to extract the metals as metals, and we have interference from the arms condition.
Oh, what a shame.
But basically, I would like to know is, are we being destructive when we try to reverse the arms condition? Or is that a constructive phase of nature that we're, and interfering with that will be...
Define what you mean by reverse the condition.
When we capture the metals in certain other metals as collectors, it seems to stabilize them so that they react as metals in our analytical schemes.
Okay.
And when we don't do this, they seem to go all the way towards the arms condition. When they get finer and finer, they go below the cluster state.
Yes, and so?
And so, is there a way of reversing that? And is that a non-destructive method? I mean, is that destructive?
You're talking about going from the monoatomic state into the metallic matrix?
Back into the metallic matrix, yes.
It is not destructive, no.
It's just something that we're free to do.
Of course. Nature does it, why not you?
Now, is that partially mental?
Everything is partially mental. You must understand that the idea is that when you are working on the level of the monoatomic, you are dealing directly with the first level of manifestation of consciousness into physical materiality. And so as your frequency of attitude, so the manifestation.
Which is also saying that if we use our mind, we can then reverse the condition.
You can, yes. But you may find that it will take some practice for your species, no offense. You may find that you will have, shall we say, better results for what you are asking for if more than one of you will combine their thoughts in that direction and so set up what you might colloquially call a consensus reality. Then the material will respond better to the geometric magnification of the thought in that direction and take its cue from the coherency of a multitude of like minds. It is not that one mind cannot do it, but one mind on our planet is usually not used to knowing that it can do it. Even though one mind does it all the time, you're not taught to know that that's what you're doing when you create your reality anyway. If you can get to the point where you realize you're doing that anyway all the time, then one mind is sufficient. Until such time, you might want to invite a few friends to help you.
We've been using silver or lead or copper or tin as a collector. Is there a better metal to use as a collector?
The silver and the copper would be best.
Silver, copper.
Yes. And even in an amalgam with gold, all three.
Does the platinum metals that are in our tin powder, do they have the same action almost as the arms? Is there a certain percentage of the arms action even though they're not down to the arms level?
Only in the energy field. Not all the way down, not fully, no. But with the correct, shall we say, proximity of other materials of appropriate sensitivity, those materials could extract a similar effect directly from the energy field around those substances as you have defined them without them necessarily having to be monoatomic materials. Because every element, whether it is exhibited in a metallic matrix, monoatomic, or otherwise, carries within its energy field the signature of the fundamental basic frequency from which it was formed, and thus that frequency can be siphoned off, so to speak, by an appropriately harmonically tuned instrument of appropriate materials that are sensitive enough to it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Would there's an L-optic radiation given off by all the minerals. Would it be possible to detect that with a light-sensitive, like a photocell?
Some of them will be detectable by your technology and some of them will not. And your technology will not detect the full spectrum that they give off. Your technology requires a higher degree of sensitivity in order to be able to see all of the spectrum that they give off, but your equipment will detect some of it. but you will notice that there are gaps.
Now you mentioned to Ellie last session that the pendulum method of doing the assaying was only about 67% accurate.
And it will depend upon the person doing it as well. There are wide variances and fluctuations of accuracy using that methodology because it calls into play all of the belief systems of the individual as well, and a variety of other factors that you may not be taking into account, such as electromagnetic field fluctuations, gravimetric dynamic field fluctuations in that particular area where you are conducting those tests.
Do you have any suggestions for making the accuracy a higher degree?
It would be best if you could utilize one of your laser devices, utilizing the coherent light thereof. One moment. Let us design something that fits your technology. One moment. If you will take the substance and rotate it and shine upon it a laser beam, it will deflect the light in such a way as you will notice on a background placed around the rotating substance in a semicircle. You follow so far?
Mm-hmm.
A background, a semicircular screen background to catch the reflection of the ray. You will notice that as you change the rotational rate of the substance, there will come a point where you will start to see a pattern, a reinforcement pattern on the screen. That reinforcement pattern will give you an indication of when you have arrived at the appropriate frequency, and from that you can extrapolate how you need to either alter the material or how you can simply utilize that material in conjunction with other things, adding appropriate other frequencies to it to allow it to have the desired effect that you want it to have. And you can decide with the pendulum which side, right side or left side of the hemispherical or hemicircular screen would represent the positive or the negative. For that function, your pendulum will be adequate. But for the more precise calibration of which side of the screen to pay attention to, the pendulum will not be adequate enough for most of you. But the diffraction, the deflection from the laser beam when the substance is spinning at different frequencies, different rates of rotation, will. And where you see the buildup of the pattern fall first on the right side or the left side will give you a more accurate reading than the pendulum does if you want that degree of accuracy. Now, one moment. We're scanning for other waves. One moment. Can you be more specific about what it is you are attempting to determine with your pendulum test?
Percentages of the presence of the specific metals, and then the percentages or the amounts present, whether it's in an ore or a...
Do you need to know that specifically, or just if it is sufficient to have the desired effect?
If it's sufficient to have the desired effect, that's adequate.
All right, then. You can also take the substance and immerse it in 3 times the amount of water as the substance and allow it to sit there for 3 days. Pour the water into the soil of a plant and watch whether or not the plant will grow more than it usually would grow. If it grows faster, if it is, in your terms, healthier, bigger, more robust, the percentage is adequate for the desired effect upon all forms of life as you would desire it to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Do you think it would be more apropos, instead of pursuing the metal end of the precious metals, to pursue that end of the plant growth as a much better endeavor in our present society?
We will leave that up to you, but I will simply give you the suggestion that it is more likely that you can eat growing things than you can eat metal.
Very good.
That was very good.
Does that help you for the moment?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the female. You are next.
It's nice to hear me stand up with you. Well, I have a multi-question.
A multi-question.
Yes.
All right.
Come on up. And,
Come forward, come forward, come forward. Be bold.
one is, I'd like to clear up, the substance some of us are taking, which is a naturally formed substance, is not produced and refined in such a way.
The monoatomic substances do have some natural outlets on your planet in a variety of levels.
Okay, well, the one I want to define is the one we're taking that is naturally formed on some land, and maybe you can exactly identify that.
I will tell you this, once again. We will not specifically endorse any specific avenue where it connects to a personality. What we will tell you is that it is correct that such monoatomic elements can be found in those circumstances. You have the ability to do your testing to determine whether or not it is the substance you believe it might be. And therefore we will not do the work for you in that sense, because the process has merit in and of itself. We will tell you that the technology is correct. We will tell you that the monoatomic substances do exist naturally in a variety of ways in food substances, and there are natural processes involving heat and pressure that do also create the monoatomic to form in a natural state without the idea of refinement or processing yet. But whether or not the specific source you have discovered is something that we can recommend, we cannot do that until you do your work.
Okay, that's great, but that wasn't my question.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I think this substance is positive, and we're having positive results.
All right.
And, but I didn't know what, when that substance, I just wanted to identify that we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
You understand the one I'm speaking of.
Are you speaking of the idea of a monoatomic form of element?
I'm speaking of the, a monoatomic form of, that comes directly from the ground in its natural substance.
Yes.
Okay,
Such exists.
Okay, that's the one I'm talking about. Okay. So when that's heated at 3,000 degrees and it forms a glass-like substance, what would be the highest vibration material to combine with that substance to get it to remain in a solid state?
Why does it not naturally remain?
It crumbles.
Ah, you mean you wish to give it tensile strength?
Yeah, extra strength.
One moment. And first of all, do you find that that substance does not congeal into the glass-like substance until you have arrived at that particular measurement of heat? Does it not do it at a lower temperature?
It may do it at a lower temperature. I was just given that temperature to experiment with.
All right, you will find that there are lower temperatures at which it will also congeal into a glass-like substance. And in fact, to some degree, you will find that temperature has a lot to do with it. You will find that somewhere around, or between, 1275 to 1300 degrees Fahrenheit as you count will be the temperature that will allow it to become most stable and not exhibit so much fragility. One moment. One moment. One moment. Again, as a stabilizer, as a catalyst, as a support system for almost every form of monoatomic expression, a small, and you will experiment with it, a small amount of doping the substance with chromium will be of assistance.
Thank you. And that would be the highest vibration and clearest. And also, the beings that are being...
One moment.
Oh, sorry.
It may also be of assistance to allow the fusion of the substance to take place within an argon atmosphere. Do you understand?
Yeah, would that be inside of a vacuum of argon?
Yes, although it would not be a vacuum if it is full of argon. But we understand what you mean.
Yes, thank you.
Is that satisfactory for you?
Yes, I have one more part to that question.
Okay.
The beams that are being accessed through the setting of a grid of that type of glass, who are they? What is the purpose of integrating with them?
You assume that there's only one kind.
No, I'm assuming, no, not at all. I'm just assuming that there are some beings, and I don't know who they are, and I wonder what.
One level will be what you would call the angelic realm. More than that, we will not discuss at present. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well?
Bashar.
Yes.
Good evening.
And to you, good day.
There's been talk of a certain planet, I think it's called Malduk.
Maldek, Marduk, it
yes.
goes by many names.
Is that in any way affecting our Earth in the next future time?
Not while you are physically alive. And you must also understand that there are many aspects to the whole concept of Maldek, Marduk. One aspect is represented by what you call now in your solar system the asteroid belt, whereupon a planetary body was destroyed. Also represented by a large body that passes through your system from time to time in a wide eccentric orbit and is not due for quite some time near your, shall we say, neighborhood. The idea, however, that you are aware of these cycles, these large cycles of transition, that will have an effect upon the consciousness of your planet. But only insofar as you recognize that it's time for a massive shift to take place in the consciousness of your world over the next few decades of time. Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense to me.
So it is acting more as a symbol of a change rather than physiologically, directly, gravitationally affecting your world. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
That answers that question, yes. Now, another one I have is, we're supposedly headed for a catastrophe in this particular area where...
Seems to me you already have one.
Yes, we do. When our Earth tilts any further, is there going to be any major changes to our Earth structure?
I will tell you this. It is possible that there will be some shifting. It is also possible that you, as a collective society, can shift your vibration adequately enough so that you will translate yourself to an Earth, a parallel Earth that will not experience that in that way. It is still, as you would put it, 50-50. Now, as you decide to become more integrated, as you decide that you can go through a transition without requiring any kind of catastrophic event to manifest that in order to shake you awake, if you can wake up first, shift your vibration appropriately first, you will not need to have that kind of a manifestation experientially, physiologically. There will be, and already are, obviously, many such subtle shifts going on your planet. And it is not impossible, since your planet has gone through it many times, for there to be a large total shift. But it can happen in a variety of ways. It can actually happen quite slowly. Or it cannot happen at all physically and happen only energetically. And again, you must understand that there are an infinite number of parallel probable realities, and when you change your vibration appropriately, you experience the parallel probable reality Earth that is reflective of the vibration you happen to be operating on. And even though there is a general mass consensus that you have agreed all to abide by, there is still an opportunity for each and every one of you to experience this transition on an individual basis in your own way. And while it may seem that things are falling apart all around you, one individual standing in the midst of chaos can be absolutely unscathed. So your vibration is the key, your individual vibration, as to how you experience whatever kind of manifestation the transition manifest itself in. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
Does that help you?
That helps me.
Anything else?
Not at the present moment.
Thank you.
Bashar,
Yay.
good evening.
As you say.
Um,
One moment. One moment. We're all having a good time.
yeah.
Indeed. So are we. Proceed.
I am taking monatomic powder at the moment,
Okay.
and I'm having very odd reactions, but I wonder if you might
Define odd.
odd.
Yes, define odd reaction.
Odd being congestion and pains in my ears.
Consistent, intermittent.
Intermittent.
One moment. Dull, sharp,
Sharp.
ringing or no ringing.
No ringing. Congested in the head.
How is your diet?
Okay, I think.
What does it consist mostly of?
Vegetables, grains,
What else?
hummus, fish.
Any dairy?
No.
One moment. One moment. One moment. Avail yourself 1 teaspoon, as you call it, pure corn oil. Ingest 3 times daily. This will aid and assist you in smoothing out
I do take flax oil.
corn oil.
In addition to or instead of?
I did not say omit. We believe, at least, last we knew, flax and corn were 2 different plants.
They still are.
Thank you. 3 teaspoons a day, morning, noon, night, pure corn oil. Also, when you do that, each time you ingest, dip these fingers. You understand on your hand? This finger, longest digit. You understand? Middle digit. You understand?
Both digits.
Both of each hand. You understand?
Yes.
Dip in corn oil. Place. Press. Breathe. In, out. In, out. In, out. 60 seconds. Rubbing, massaging, corn oil, base of skull behind each ear, rubbing, massaging, corn oil after ingesting teaspoonful. Do you comprehend?
Yes. Could you explain what that is adding to my system?
It is adding certain kinds of electrolytic balance and infusing cellular structure with adequate amount of communicative material so there can be cohesiveness in certain forms of electrochemical manifestation.
Could this last explain my hair loss over the last 2 years?
Yes, to some degree, although other toxins may also be contributing to that idea, and toxicity of what you call heavy metal in your environment of your planet, water, air, other substances, so on and so forth. So, if you can divest yourself to some degree more of heavy metal toxicity, it would also aid and assist you. Some form of ideas that you recognize as chelation can be of some assistance in bonding to the heavy metals in your body and allowing them to be removed through your waste procedures. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. Further. How much ingestion of sesame? Any?
A little.
More. How much now? Some, now and then?
Yes.
More. Seed and oil. Seed and oil help to bond.
Heavy metal?
Yes. All right. Sesame.
Bashar,
Yes.
is the white powder that I'm ingesting assisting me?
It is assisting you to assist yourself, for that is what it does best. Remember this. The monoatomics are designed specifically to allow you to be taken to a certain state where it is easier for you to make the transmutations you want to make. The white powder does not make the transmutation for you.
I understand.
It takes you to the state where it makes it easier for you that your choices stick. But it will magnify whatever choices you make.
Thank you very much.
Does that help?
Tremendously.
Thank you.
I think it helps a lot of people in the room with heavy metals that we're just discovering we're so definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Bashar?
You and then you. Do you know who you are, number two?
Yes.
Thank you. Number one.
Good evening.
And to you, good day.
For those of us who are making an effort or a choice to take more of the natural foods that contain the rhodium and iridium,
Eggs.
I wonder if you could give us an idea of what we might expect from it. I mean, in general terms, I guess we would expect, better health or a sense of well-being.
Yes. Feeling lighter, more energetic, needing less sleep, so on and so forth. Better ability to heal, knit tissue, so on and so forth in case of injury. Better enhancement of all sensory apparatus in the body, so on and so forth. More over time, psychic sensitivity and sensitivity to other higher frequency energies and so forth is what you can, as you say, expect.
Okay, that was great. That was the first part of the question, and I guess very related to that, some type of general time frame from when we start?
Totally dependent upon the individual. A generalization, if you will, understand it is an extreme generalization, would be 3 to 5 of your years in general, from beginning of lightening of the diet in that way till time when you feel that you are functioning fully on a different frequency in accordance to the monoatomics that are being ingested within that diet. But again, it will depend greatly upon the individuals, their belief systems, and a variety of other things that they may choose to subject themselves to. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Is that sufficient?
That answers my question exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Number two.
Yes.
Good day.
Good evening to you, Bashar.
Thank you. If you can, speak up and be bold so that all may hear the gift you have to share.
I am aware that in order to provide to us rhodium and iridium, we can look to carrots, grapes, certain grapes, and so forth. Now, I'm seeking to find what plant might provide from the property-enriched soil gold. And are there plants available for a broad, to be used by a broad spectrum of humanity that contains the monatomic gold?
That which exhibits the coloration of the highest frequency in your visible spectrum.
Violet?
Yes. Therefore, eggplant, so on and so forth.
Oh, yeah. Purple, violet, plant.
Yes. Flowering kale. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
However, if each and every one of you had what you may call a broad spectrum diet that was basically vegetarian in nature, you would thus naturally encounter just about everything you needed to encounter in that broad spectrum diet. And you wouldn't necessarily have to focus or concentrate on any one particular substance as such. You must understand that the presence of the gold in the soil is not the point. The plants are designed as a type of matrix conversion unit that directly converts the etheric energy from its basic state into the monoatomic state directly. They are mini fusion reactors in that sense, fusing direct electromagnetic energy into the appropriate monoatomic form that is represented by the particular idea each plant represents. So it does not have to necessarily be completely present in the soil. As long as a variety of general minerals are present, it will make use of these and the water and combine them and break them down in certain ways as to create the monoatomic material necessary for its creation.
Do you term that as plant manifestation? Something like that?
Okay.
Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Would the cooking destroy the eggplant benefit because it's hard to eat them raw?
You will find that wherein the plants are not digestible in their raw state, a small amount of cooking and or steaming, as long as all the juices are retained and ingested along with them, will be adequate. Wherein you can allow yourself to ingest the plant in its raw state, this is best.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Also, the juicing of several plants will be adequate as well in many conditions, as long as you do not go beyond the 72-hour limit for potency. Does that help you?
How would you juice the eggplant if that's...
I did not say you had to juice the eggplant. Where such plants are susceptible to juicing, they are adequate to retain the amount of monoatomic substance as long as you do not allow them to sit longer than 72 hours of their potency limitation before the matrix breaks down and they are incapable of delivering the monoatomic substances then adequately to your body.
Could you name some of those for us?
As you know, simply things like carrot and so forth, that you can ingest in juice form. This is not mysterious. I'm not being cryptic. You understand? Thank you. Yes.
I was just going to ask about the oil, the sesame oil you're referring to the lady in the flax. Is it okay to cook that a little, or does that change it?
Not so much. Oils, in that sense, again, contain their highest potency in natural state. If they are ingestible that way, they are ingestible that way for a reason. All right?
Thank you.
Again, in certain circumstances, a small amount of heating will usually not be too detrimental as long as it is ingested immediately and it is not too much in the heat. But generally, no, it should not be if you wish the potency to be at full power.
Bashar,
Yes.
can you delineate the difference between the idea of being superconductive and the idea that you introduced us to as being hyperconductive?
Yes. Superconductive is the effect in what you might perceive as one frequency, one direction of an energy, so to speak. Hyperconductive is the actual natural state of the simultaneous existence of many different fields overlapping. What you actually call the superconductive field is actually a hyperconductive field. It is not really superconductivity until you collapse the field and get the unidirectional effect of the voltage or amperage out of it. So superconductivity is the effect in one direction of the application of the energy in your physical domain. Hyperconductivity is the field that has no particular direction to it because it is composed of all directions of energy. Does that make sense to you?
So when we ingest the monoatomics, we become hyperconductive.
You actually become hyperconductive, but you can utilize that energy by collapsing the field within your body with your intentional focus and create superconductive effects. Yes. You can direct the energy inward superconductively or outward superconductively. But generally, in the natural state, in the relaxed state, it is a hyperconductive state because you are connecting to a multidimensional holographic structure simultaneously in all directions at once. Does that make sense?
Yes. And can you, some of the monoatomics retain a high degree of magnetism, such as cobalt and nickel, where other elements are highly conductive, such as gold and silver and copper, but do not retain any magnetism. And some of them are used for hardening, with palladium and some other things. Is there a correspondence to the way they are in their metallic state and the effects they will have when ingested in their monatomic state on the body?
There is not much correlation, except that because of the essence of their difference in the metallic state, it will give you some indication in the monoatomic state of what that particular monoatomic element might affect within the body physically and symbolically more than another thing that it might affect. For example, those that in metallic state exhibit a high degree of magnetism or magnetic effect in monoatomic state might be that which enhances specifically the magnetic signature of the cellular structure of the body more than another monoatomic element might do, whereas another monoatomic element might more adequately, perhaps, let us say, enhance other kinds of fields or the communication field of the cellular structure, or specifically affect a particular organ signature or something to that effect. You follow? So their metallic effect gives you a clue symbolically to what its monoatomic effect will be in the body.
And with things that are more conductive, like silver and gold, works better in relation to the nervous system?
To some degree, yes.
To make it more conductive?
Yes. And again, once again, in every case, combined with chromium, it will allow it to become much more effective in anything that it can do and extend its abilities beyond what it would normally have.
What type of chromium do you suggest to ingest with the different monoatomics?
Monoatomic. Chromium, of course.
And rhodium seems to come out in the urine when the urine analysis is done, whereas iridium seems to be absorbed by the body. Is there
It comes out in your perspiration. Your body always has the ability to regulate and balance itself, for from time to time it may find that it has an adequate supply of what it needs, and it will divest itself of any surplus, because it knows you will always get more. That is, of course, if you're living a natural life. But the iridium will come out in your perspiration, just as the rhodium comes out in your urination. And other elements will come out in other ways.
And can you comment on urine therapy?
It is sufficient for certain very specific purposes, in very specific moments, with specific individual conditions. It is not necessarily as generally, as you say, across the board effective, as might be something like the ozone therapy for most individuals. It is not as generalized as that, but it can have some benefit for some individuals in certain circumstances.
And can you comment on children taking the monoatomics in relation to their developing DNA structure?
You will find that many of the children being born on your planet now have a greater capacity to actually convert what they ingest into monoatomics than you do. And thus you will find they do not necessarily need quite as much, for they are already coming through in a DNA structure that acts as an automatic amplifier and a fusion reactor, or a breakdown reactor if you wish, to rearrange the elements that they do ingest in their monoatomic form. Their DNA structure is already very different, and as we have said, the children that have been born, especially within the last few years of your time, are not just a different generation, they are not just a different culture, they are a different species.
And what type of specific uses would ruthenium have for the body? What system will it work best with?
You will find that ruthenium has great advantages for thyroidal action. You will find that ruthenium has great advantages for adenoidal action. You will find that ruthenium has great advantages for thymus action as well.
And
there will be a small secondary effect in the idea of the allowance of bone to generate marrow.
Bone marrow?
8.
So for things like leukemia and things like that?
To some degree, 8.
And what about cobalt?
In monoatomic form, you will find that when ingested in small amounts, to 30 milligrams only. 10 to 30 milligrams only. This is your warning, warning, warning. 10 to 30 milligrams monoatomic cobalt only in the human form in its present state will build up within you a type of thermal regulation system that will allow your energy field to be greatly enhanced, greatly accelerated. More than that, will actually engender spontaneous combustion. You understand?
Does that have a relation to the blue color?
Yes. It is highly electromagnetic, and more than that, your physical body, at this stage of your evolution, cannot sustain. You will find that some of the instances of what you call your spontaneous human combustion are because there are certain builds-up of monoatomic elements of this nature in your body, and when the Earth's magnetic field fluctuates up and down in certain ways, it, shall we say, piggybacks with the frequency of those monoatomic elements in the body, and when the Earth's magnetic field rises in frequency, it pulls that frequency up, and poof, goes your body.
What collapse?
What collapse, yes. Because it cannot sustain, it cannot keep up with that elevation in frequency to that degree. So you get out of phase, and when you get out of phase, there is the flux collapse, and again, colloquially speaking, poof. From the inside out. As you have observed in cases of spontaneous combustion. The heat does not come from outside, it comes from inside. Every single cell disrupts and collapses and increases their electromagnetic amperage sometimes by a factor of 10 million. Then, of course, as it disintegrates, there is nothing to carry the heat, and so it dissipates quite rapidly and rarely affects the surrounding environment to any great degree. Which is why the body will burn, but not the chair that it is sitting in. You understand?
Yeah.
It's because there is immediate disintegration, and therefore nothing to carry the heat.
And does the nickel and the green have a warning?
Nickel. One moment. You will find that in a variety of ways, nickel will be a difficult thing to sustain in monoatomic form unless combined, again, with the catalytic chromium. Even though they do not interact in the same way that many atomic interactions occur, the presence alone of the chromic field will allow nickel to be maintained more adequately in monoatomic form. And when it has done so, it is a very, very, very good enhancer for the idea of the learning capabilities of the neural net of the brain.
And how come nickel and iron don't seem to be able to retain their state very long?
They are, as you would call it, too stably connected to other forms of representation. If they were not so, if they were not, as you would say, grounded in this way, and had the tendency to go back to their state of natural physical grounding matrix, you would find that your world would fly apart. Thus, they maintain the stabilization necessary for the other monoatomics to function in much the same way, again, as you need a grounding effect to allow other effects to function. You need a foundation for the house to stand. And so only rarely do things such as nickel and iron and a few other substances automatically shift into monoatomic state. In fact, they almost never automatically do so unless they are in the presence of the chromic catalyst or some other catalytic energy that can allow them to do so in certain circumstances where it will not cause too much disruption. But they automatically and instantly restabilize that. Otherwise, you would have an instant chain reaction, and a large section of the planet would all of a sudden convert into the monoatomic state, and thus back also immediately almost into energy. Similar to the concept of what you would call matter and antimatter, but not exactly the same. But it would become highly unstable.
And the only other two that you haven't commented on are palladium and silver.
We have to some degree commented earlier upon the idea of silver. Palladium. One moment. Vision. Palladium is good for vision. One moment. And reparation. Regeneration of certain cellular structures that are, as you would say, duty specific, such as things like the rods and cones of the eye, the taste buds of the tongue, and other things that have to do with sensory apparatus. Silver has some benefit in this area as well, but also, one moment, it aids to some degree in the reparation of bones, especially the dental enamel, but not in the way that you use it in your dentistry, but in monoatomic state. You see, in many ways, many of you instinctively understand that the silver is supposed to be applied to the teeth, but you don't know how to apply it. So, not in what you call your fillings in metallic form, but in monoatomic state, it will aid in the reparation and the strengthening of such things as your dental enamel and other things in the body.
And does that also apply to help overcome mercury toxicity?
It can.
And when one starts on the monoatomic journey, will that state that's engendered, let's say, overcome the negative effects of mercury amalgam?
Beyond a certain point, yes. But it may take a while in that it has to fight the toxic effects that may be present within the physical form. Eventually, it may, in that sense, as you say, overpower it.
Because it's almost the same amount of money to get most of the amalgams removed as it is to purchase the substances.
You must also understand that there is a great degree of monoatomic salt, so to speak, in seawater. And rinsing your mouth with seawater, of course, that is unpolluted, will go a long way for the aiding of dental health.
Is Hawaiian water the best?
It is at least one of the best that remains upon your planet at this time. And also, of course, the dissolved monoatomic gold in seawater also will infuse itself into your cellular structure as well.
Is this how the cetaceans access it?
Yes. But they also do something else. Because they have the ability to focus their acoustic beacons in certain harmonic waves, what they do is create a harmonic acoustic equivalent in water of a superconductor and allow the monoatomic elements to simply be drawn like a magnet into that acoustic beacon and thus concentrated and thus then absorbed, taken internally. They can actually use their acoustic beacons in this way as a siphon for monoatomic elements because they know how to tune them to those frequencies and create water superconductors.
Is that a similar effect that we can have with music?
You can create that effect with music, yes. Take your cue from the dolphins. They'll be willing to teach you as long as they know you will use it in positive ways, because I will tell you this, it can be an extremely destructive power as well. Does that help you?
Thank you very much.
Good.
Bashar.
You, and then you.
I've noticed that you were talking about perspiring. I've been perspiring a lot for a while, and then also getting really, really hot, like I feel like I have a temperature. And I have been drinking a lot of the grape juice, but it's been happening before. Can you tell me what's causing it, what I can do about it?
Some of it may be due to the idea of toxic release. When they are, in that sense, beginning to be released from the cellular structure of your body, they are automatically dumped into your bloodstream, and this can cause an elevation of your temperature, almost a feverish reaction, an allergic reaction to the highly concentrated amounts of toxins now being dumped into your bloodstream, which can actually cause you to break out into a sweat to allow those toxins to be evacuated through the perspiration of your body. And to some degree, this is what is happening with you as you make certain changes within the consciousness within you.
Is there anything I can take to aid that, or anything I can do to aid that, or just continue what I'm doing?
Take a shower. And rinse it away. Take a swim and rinse it away. Breathe, as we have suggested, in a yogic style. Increase that energy, allow the toxicity dumping to be accelerated, and allow it then to be eliminated more quickly from your system through yogic breathing, so on and so forth, through meditations. All these things can be of some assistance in balancing your body out in that way and accelerating the elimination of toxins, yes.
So what I am doing now, you can see the good effects from it.
Okay. Thank you. Number two.
Yes.
Good day.
Good day. I have two questions.
Yes.
The first had to do with spontaneous human combustion.
Yes.
You mentioned, and it was also mentioned, the Orange Conference with David Hudson.
All right.
And I wanted to ask if the ingestion of these monatomic elements would increase the possibility of having that happen.
No. Again, this is when it happens that the individual has utilized only one particular type of monoatomic concentration in a method that is completely out of phase with the vibration of their collective consciousness. Let me put it this way. If you were to ingest those monoatomic elements that are highly connected to the concept of magnetism, electromagnetism, so on and so forth, and only that one kind, and then were to allow your body to be, as you say, infused to a great degree with that one kind of monoatomic element, and then were to allow your frequency, your whole signature frequency, to become susceptible to the magnetic fluctuations of your planet, it is possible you might be able to induce spontaneous combustion. However, you will find that more often than not when that occurs, the individual also is highly toxic, and that's why the phase variance is so extreme. But if you are completely clarifying your system during the ingestion of the monoatomic elements, it is less likely that such a phase variance could occur. Such a discordance could occur. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And
I'd like to know, you were talking about the benefits of eating all these vegetables. What's your feeling about eating chicken and meat, things of that? Is that a negative, or is that an augment the vegetables?
you will find in this day and age on your planet that very rarely does the ingestion of animal protein occur in the way that it used to, especially in the high degree of toxins in the animal meat. Secondly, you are, in your evolution of consciousness, beginning to realize that animals are, in many ways, an extension of all of you. And you are beginning to realize that it is relatively unnecessary for the large amount of ingestion of animal protein now in your society that you're becoming more highly accelerated. It, in fact, will actually slow your acceleration down by being denser, thicker, heavier than your vibration wants to be. So combined with the amount of toxins, the amount of dis-ease, the amount of psychic torment that goes into the processing of animal flesh on your planet, I would suggest that you will only be holding yourself back. Now, if you find from time to time that your body consciousness, for some reason, feels that it must take in some degree of animal protein, I would recommend to some degree, for now, you stick with the lighter level of that, if at all, in what you may call the fishes, and that you still allow yourself to ensure as best as you possibly can that it has the lowest levels of toxicity possible. But at the same time, You do it as a spiritual act of gratitude, of sharing, in that it is willing to exchange its energy into you, to support you in that way, as it used to be done upon your planet when it was deemed necessary. You understand?
Yes.
That, if at all, is what will allow it to work and incorporate into your consciousness in a positive and beneficial way, so that you'll be working with the consciousness of the animal, not dominating the animal, not, in that sense, the kind of predation that the human species has created that is unique and is not the same type of predation that exists in what you might call the animal kingdom naturally. Although that doesn't even exist in a natural state, most of the animal kingdom, in that sense, is predatory, because you, as what you might call the collective consciousness signature frequency, I will not say ruling or dominant consciousness, but simply that which exhibits the highest degree of freedom of choice upon your planet to some degree, animals in that sense are predatory upon your planet because you are predatory. When you become more symbiotic, your animals will also reflect that symbiosis as they do on my planet. Wherein an animal can, in essence, quote-unquote, feed or connect or combine upon the energy of another animal, but in so doing they enhance each other, they do not deplete nor kill each other. You will find that this transition will occur, and this is a symbolism on one level of what you may call your biblical phrase of the lion and the lamb laying down together. In that there will no longer be the need for predation, because they will recognize each other as polarities of the same one thing, and the predation is only symbolic of, in that sense, feeding on yourself. Does this make any sense?
Yes, it does. And I have one last thing to ask.
Good.
At the Orange Conference, it was stated by David that he felt that there was a possibility that consciousness, as we know it, is a superconductivity of the rhodium and iridium going on in the brain, and that is what's producing the Meissner field in our body.
It is, to some degree, producing the Meissner field, but it is not creating consciousness. It is, however, creating the Meissner field, which allows for the expression of consciousness in what you call the form mentality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mentality is simply an effect of consciousness interacting in a physical domain through the auspices of what you call an electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic field is basically what you call spirit.
Yes.
Consciousness solidifies itself a little bit, becomes spirit, solidifies itself, becomes physical material. And so you have the idea of pure consciousness, electromagnetic energy, and physical material matter. It's all the same thing, in the same way that you have the concept of steam and liquid water and ice. It's all the same material at different degrees of densification. The electromagnetic field is the level at which consciousness can express itself as thought form, as mentalization in the physical domain. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
One moment. Have you adjusted your machine?
Yes, thank you.
Proceed. You, and then you. And then you. One moment. 1, 2, 3. You know who you are, number 2?
Yes.
You know who you are, number 3?
Yes.
And number 4?
Yes.
All right. 1.
Sorry, the being we know as Jesus, did he go in the desert for 40 days and fast because of the flux variance you were talking about before he did the monatomics? If in fact he did do the monatomics?
Monoatomics were naturally within the construct of that individual. No further ingestion of such was required. All that was ingested was converted, as it was already in the DNA structure to do so.
Did he get the DNA structure from going to the various mystery schools that they feel like he went to?
No. The DNA structure was present at physical materialization that you recognize as birth.
So the reference to the 40 days that David Hudson spoke about many times, and it is in a lot of the literature.
Okay.
Is that?
It is the time necessary for an individual cycle on your planet to cycle from one frequency to the next, when it is devoid of all other negative concerns. or it is the time necessary for the processing out of all negative frequencies. For an individual, 40 days. For a culture on your planet, 40 years. That's the cycle of Earth. For transmutation from one level to another, as a collective or as an individual. 40 days for the individual. 40 years for a culture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that sufficient?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 2.
Good day, Bashar.
Good day.
This is Dusty here again.
All right, dust yourself off and proceed.
Would you please share with us some of the foods that we can eat that contain the iridium and the rhodium?
You already have the ability to determine this, and you already know some of them. You can do your own homework.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Number 3.
Good evening, Bashar.
And you, good day.
In addition to eating the foods we've been talking about tonight,
Okay.
I've been doing some other things.
Okay.
One was kind of interesting after what you talked about with the sea salt, the sea water. I've been putting sea salt in my bath, and also using stones like different types of stones, cyanide, fluoride, different types.
Yikes.
I can go on if you want, but
you don't need to.
I found that has been working in conjunction with all of this inner transformation. I feel like an energy form field is being created, and that if you could comment more on that.
You are creating a stimulation of the environment, of the ocean, so you can connect more strongly to that energy, to its ability to transmute energy within you, to the cetacean consciousness, and to the connection that you have to the star system of Sirius.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, and you took all of the questions out of my head.
Well, we thought you wanted us to be efficient.
Wow. Maybe we can go on and then I'll come back with something else pops in later.
Thank you, number 4.
Oh, good evening.
And you, good day.
Thank you. I'm very interested in the elements that I produce in my system.
Yes.
Its connection in terms of
melanin.
And its connection in terms of its elements.
Yes.
And also from your point of view, from your world,
yes.
How do you view the melanin situation in terms of various steps of it?
The idea was originally created as an infusion of certain elements, iron, copper, and a few others, that would aid and assist in the grounding of the vibration of the species to the planet Earth, so that adaptation could take place. It is, therefore, the reflection of some of the strongest connections to the Earth's vibration itself, that coloration. And therefore the strongest ability to communicate directly with the Earth's collective consciousness. Does that make sense? In what way do you feel it needs to make more sense? Do you wish us to re-explain that in a different way?
Maybe so, but it's connected to certain glands in terms of its connection as far as its production.
It can be, yes. It was required, or it was recognized, that if there was going to be a human body, and it was going to function in a certain way, that the production of these elements and the infusion of them into the body would need to be regulated by the DNA, and the DNA would need to regulate certain glands to secrete these things and make sure that they existed in adequate form and adequate amounts within the human body, so that the human body would radiate at a frequency to be capable of communicating directly with the Earth spirit, with the Earth consciousness, so that there would be ease of adaptation, ease of communication. Therefore, it is connected in some way to pancreatic action, to sinus action. One moment. Liver and kidney action to some degree. One moment. All of these work in conjunction to regulate the various frequencies of the appropriate elements to allow there to be a balance and achieve the correct overall signature vibration that will allow an individual in human form to be represented by that frequency in order to be grounded and connected to the earth in a very particular way. Does that make more sense? And in terms of how we relate to that idea, in the energy frequency that we exist in, we have almost none. You are species as greyish white. White is what you call your paper. You understand? But we are connecting to a different frequency, a different idea, a different dimensional reality than your physical domain. And thus we are required to be capable of becoming transparent to certain kinds of energy so that we may exist in our dimension of reality without being destroyed. And so for us the idea of the melanin does not really exist, but other substances do, such as minute amounts of chlorophyll. For us then, chlorophyll in minute amounts allows our body to absorb light directly and transmute it into energy in the way that is appropriate for our species. In the same way that the melanin in your system absorbs energy of the planet Earth and uses it to be transmuted, to be channeled for a variety of healing, balancing, and communication expressions. Does that make sense? Yes. Does that answer the question and address the situation sufficiently?
Yes, it does.
Why, thank you.
Bashar?
Bashar? Yes. Yes. Yes.
I have a couple of specific questions about chemistry.
Chemistry.
Hydrogen has been, there have been 3 or 4 inventions where they utilized, one was a white tablet, one was a green tablet, and one was a mixture of ordinary chemicals to turn water into a fuel in the internal combustion engine.
Yes.
You know what those specific chemicals are?
Chlorine was used in some of the process. Nitrogen was used in some of the processes. One moment. Zinc and some form of aluminum powder. One moment. However, this will be developed to a certain degree. This idea, as you call it, of this kind of fuel and application for about 13 more of your use. And that's it. Beyond that, pure connection to the electromagnetic field will provide you all the power you need for every possible use. And it will be not required that you have what you now call internal combustion engine in about 13 of your use. Maximum. It is therefore, in that sense, a dead-end technology.
I know of 2 instances, the 5 cornered rocks that they carved in the Peruvian cities and also in other parts of the world. They used a plant sap to soften the rock.
Okay.
Could you tell me what that plant substance is and perhaps the botanic name of the plant?
One moment. It is connected to the concept you call aloe. It is similar to that family. One moment. You might recognize it in your language as a type of agave, something of that nature. One moment. You will be able to find this if you will ask the natives that exist in your South American continent, in many places within what you call Central and South, although not so much now in Central, but more in what you call the Amazon jungle. There still remains many such plants that can be utilized in this way. Those that have the closest approximation, again, to the concept that you would call agave or aloe, in that sense, will be the ones that you are looking for. we find that there is not within the channel's vocabulary the adequate word for the translation further than this. But you can find it by asking. Many of the natives still know of it and know how it works. Can you do that?
Yes, thank you. Now, how about the plant substance they use to soften iron so they can bend iron bars at fairs and other exhibitions in Cuba? Is that a similar type of plant substance?
Only once that we are aware of was such a concentration of the same substance used for the bending of iron in that way. There is something very different going on in the bending of that iron, and it has nothing to do really mostly with the concept of the plant substance. Most of the individuals, though they are not many anyway, that have exhibited any such thing of that type as you have described it, have simply utilized the electromagnetic field, what you call the Meissner field, of their own body to accomplish the effect. They simply utilize, if they do at all, the so-called plant substance as a trigger, as to some degree a focusing element, a focusing substance, an amplifying substance, but it is the field of the body itself that is actually providing the energy. The substance from the plant is simply acting like a magnifying lens or a directing lens. It is not doing the effect. Does that make sense?
Yes. There's a Mexican man that substituted a different type of carbon, and instead of getting cast iron, he got cast steel. Would you know what that form of carbon was? Was it like coffee grounds or sugar or tortillas or beans? Something on food stuff?
It is similar to the concept that you now understand as Buckminster fullerene. You understand that?
Yes.
Yeah. But it is suspended in an oil-like suspension, a petroleum-like suspension. One moment. There is a high degree of silica present as well. One moment. One moment. One moment. The combination of a type of petroleum oil, graphite, and the carbon form of Buckminster fullerene with small amounts of silica will create this effect. All right?
And what triggers inertia or astitia in the human?
Define the word. It is not the channel vocabulary.
Not having to eat.
Not translate.
Not having to eat and only to drink very tiny amounts of fluids.
The idea can be representative of simply deriving, as we do in our species now at this time, direct sustenance from direct electromagnetic fields. Instead of going the route of having to use electromagnetic fields that have been patterned in material forms, you can, once your frequency is high enough, once the field around your body is cohesive enough, once you are tuned to those high fields, you can be sustained by the etheric energy directly of those fields, and will not need to ingest any physical material at all. Is this what you are asking?
Yes. Thank you.
Our civilization now at this time does this. We do not, in your terms, eat anymore. There was a time when our collective consciousness created what then became a natural growing plant, which produced one type of being that gave us all the sustenance we need, as it was the reflection of the combined collective consciousness of the electromagnetic field awareness. You have a similar being on your planet that is also high in the concentration of the monoatomic chromium. Lima being.
That's right.
Thank you. Number 2.
Thank you.
I'm Bashar.
And are you good day?
It seems, just as an introduction, it seems apparent that we, the human species, need to change our consciousness on this planet.
You are choosing to, yes.
We're choosing to because we cannot sustain the way we are living, the way we are existing on this planet. My question is, first of all, do you feel that pursuing this path of the white powder is a good path to pursue?
It is one path.
One path.
It is representative, to some degree, more than perhaps certain other paths, of the degree to which your consciousness is becoming cohesive and synchronized. In that sense, it is a high reflection of that kind of harmonization of your consciousness, but there are many paths. Yes.
Okay, well, your answer leads into my second question, which is, such as fluoride in water now, or can certain individuals take this material and, as a byproduct of enlightenment, can they teach other people to raise the consciousness and intelligence of this planet?
Yes. You do not necessarily always have to take this. You do get it in many of your natural foods, as we have already discussed, and as many of you already know. There are many other ways to amplify this effect, again, through the idea of yogic breathing and meditation and so on and so forth, that you can thus then take and share this information and this knowledge with other individuals, for there are many approaches to life. And you don't necessarily need the fluoride in your water.
Okay, so just to summarize the second question, you feel that not everyone must take this.
No.
Leaders can exist and teach this enlightenment to others.
Yes. Again, the idea is that in some way, shape, or form, individuals of high frequency, no matter how they have arrived at that, will generally start to generate the substance within their body anyway. So it can act as a booster for you if you wish. In that sense, it is certainly not harmful and may be of assistance to many of you. But if you do not find yourself inspired or excited to do so, you certainly do not have to arrive at the same degree of acceleration in your own way. Because everyone is different. If there was only, as we say, one way, there would only be one person. Look around you. So, the idea is to go with your own joy, your own excitement as to what you feel harmonious with. It will always lead you to exactly what works best for you at any given moment. And if you change your mind somewhere along the course of your process, so be it.
Okay, what about the species as a whole?
What about it?
Well,
many individuals in general may derive great benefit from it. Many individuals will have nothing to do with it. Many individuals will arrive how it is they're going to arrive in whatever way they choose.
But will it raise the consciousness of the species?
Yes. It will add to the overall raised consciousness of the species, what you typically refer to as the so-called 100th monkey syndrome. Of course, anything you do for a purpose that is connected to your intentional integration will raise the consciousness of the species as a whole, or I'll put it more precisely, will make available to the species as a whole more opportunity for consciousness raising.
Okay, thank you, Bashar.
Does that answer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. One moment. Remember, there was a yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good evening, Bashar.
Thank you. Good day.
Would you comment on the virtue of fasting, either before or during the ingesting of the arms material?
Since generally, as we have suggested, it is necessary for there to be the relaxation and the grounding state before the shifting of transmutational impact, because you are already injecting certain substances upon your planet and taking in certain kinds of toxins and so on and so forth, perhaps what you may call a 7-day stretch might be of adequate value before you start another regimen of that nature.
Thank you. Is our increasingly malevolent government taking an interest?
Watch out how you talk about yourselves. You are your government, after all. Do not separate yourself. From our point of view, we don't see any difference. You have all decided the structure of your society. You will continue to do so. If you make it an us versus them, you will only perpetuate the same structure that you are complaining about. So, be your government. Act responsibly as individuals, and together in a loving way, co-create the system that you prefer that allows each and every individual to fulfill their function as a unique and responsible, self-empowered individual, rather than giving your power away to someone to run it for you. They're only doing the job that you created them to do, and now you're complaining about it. So the idea is to take back your fear, be responsible for it, find out why you're afraid to run your own lives, stop complaining about them, and allow them to know through your communications of unconditional love and support that now it's time for everyone to be self-empowered, including them, and it is no longer on their shoulders to carry the burden that has caused them to crack and to go in the direction of domination, which is the natural result of heaping all of the responsibility for all of your self-empowerment upon their shoulders. How's that for an answer? It may not be the one that you expected, but it is actually the route that will be of best benefit. However, if you wish to go back and start over, we can. And talk about this in what you might call a little bit more, no pun intended, down-to-earth modality. So, what do you want to do?
Well, I would like to know if those individuals we consider our government, whom we put in so optimistically, if they are taking a particular interest in the production of the ORM's material. Very few know about it at all. They do not consider it to be a threat to them.
They don't understand it.
I personally know a very intelligent scientist who was producing this material, and he is presently in jail on a trumped-up drug charge, serving 30 years.
A few know about it.
I wonder if we are exposing ourselves to similar vindictive action.
Not if your frequency is otherwise. And if you allow yourself to recognize the positive impact that can come out of any effect, you will realize that that individual chose to be made an example of, to inspire other individuals to do something about it. Therefore, it will have an overall positive effect, even though that individual right now may not necessarily be feeling that reality is so positive. But if your vibration stays in the direction where everything that happens is done in an unconditionally loving way and not through fear, then the only effect you will derive from your reality will be generally a positive one. You must also remember that the individual who may be in jail probably carried within their consciousness a lot of fear of being caught, and thus that may have been the strongest belief structure that they had, and thus they simply generated self-fulfilling prophecy. Make sense?
It could be. Another question. I have in my hand a little...
One moment. Back up. Do you not feel that you are satisfied with the idea that individuals generate their reality?
I do feel very comfortable with that idea, yes.
All right. Do you have any opportunity at all to communicate with that individual in your jail?
Yes, he phoned me 3 or 4 days ago.
All right. It perhaps would be of benefit for both of you to actually discuss the fears he may have had, and in putting him in touch with those fears, to help him redefine how else he could look at the situation and start redefining it in a positive way, and so then to truly alchemically transmute the entire event to have a different outcome, to go in a different direction. After all, isn't this all about alchemical transformation? It starts with all of you. All the alchemists knew it. It's not just about the transmutation that the white powder can affect. It's about the transmutation of the soul, of the spirit, of the idea of how you define yourself. That's what it's all about. And the white powder cannot be effective really for you in a positive way until the transmutation of your own idea of how you define yourself is as pure as the driven snow. That's the coherency that you all need. You need synchronicity, synchronization, harmonization, and coherency, and superconductivity, and integrity of intentional focus of how you choose to define what you believe is the most likely reality that will occur from the actions you take. Then everything will spontaneously and magically fall perfectly into place, and you won't have to worry about the idea of who's going to come after you. Because you will, in effect, just as the superconductor does, become invisible to all that are not of that frequency.
That's a brilliant analysis. I thank you for that.
We thank you for allowing us to reflect back to you, like a mirror, what you already knew anyway. What else would you like to discuss?
I have in my hand a little baggie of a white powder.
Oh, white?
I would like to know if this contains any orange material. Do you need to touch it?
No. One moment. Have you done anything to use your technology to analyze this yet?
I have not personally, but it has been analyzed.
And what effect were you told existed?
64% orange gold, monatomic gold.
Do you find a high degree of coherency in the process that was utilized? Do you feel that the process was sufficient unto your understanding of how such a process should occur? In other words, to put it simply, do you believe that the people that analyzed it did their job?
I can't comment on that because I don't know. I'm going to find out more about that this coming week.
All right. One moment. One moment. One moment. We must consult. There are two different directions here. One moment. 37% of it is not monoatomic. The rest is. All right?
Yes, thank you. Are there any harmful materials in here if this material were to be ingested?
No. Anything else?
Yes, I have another little baggie of a tan substance, light brown substance.
Baggie number 2. This wouldn't happen to be a game show on your planet. What do you mean, baggie number 2?
There's not enough sex and violence.
I see. I know you're all talented in that direction. Perhaps you could add some. What do you wish to discuss about the contents of the tan material?
This material was represented to me to be something which is very, very difficult for me to accept.
Which is?
Which is crystallized water, crystallized heavy water. Deuterium, crystallized deuterium.
One moment. Place that within the channel pan. It is not.
Thank you.
One moment. It is, however, extracted from seawater. But it is in that sense simply the collection of certain minerals from certain sites of seawater. There is to some degree some benefit to this substance as well, in that it can be placed back into water, and thus then the body can be immersed in that water, and it will have some positive and beneficial effects. But that is what we scan it generally to be.
It is also represented that this material will neutralize radioactivity, such as the Chernobyl site in Russia
was simply psychically picked up upon with the idea that there are a few elements in there that are connected to what needs to be created that will have that effect. But what you're holding in your hand is in such a crude state that it won't work that way. However, if certain elements in their substances are refined to the monoatomic state, and thus then all mixed together in type of polymer matrix, yes, it will have that effect, but the substance you are holding is very far away from that state. But psychically they picked up upon the fact that it does contain that potential in the same way that what you might call crude oil contains the potential of being turned into gasoline. You understand that analogy?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Hi.
Bashar.
You, and then you. And then you.
You mentioned before about if I got this right, that the iridium or substances of the monatomic like that could open up our psychic centers and everything, but the white powdered gold would give us the longevity.
Specifically, it is strong in that direction. Okay. And even the energy field itself around the monoatomic gold will also impart the idea of increased longevity.
So if we tuned into that vibration, that frequency,
okay,
we could then, my idea is we could use the mind tuning into that frequency to then have a longevity and reverse age.
Yes, but again, then it will take an adequate practice for the single mind of your species to do this, as we have discussed before.
Okay.
It may not necessarily come very easily to most of you to do it that way. Therein, the ingestion of the material is like a good booster symbol for many of you, to help your body remember what frequency it needs to be on.
Okay, so we would really have to take the gold in order to have the longevity. And does that correct the DNA and give the 20-year-old body and everything again?
It may not necessarily work exactly that way for every single individual, but it will have a tendency to, shall we say, generalize the traits of your human form so that there would appear to be a range of somewhere between your 20 and 40th year, averaging out to about your 33rd year. This is what happens generally when you become spirit. When you die, you will find that most spirits, which are then consciousness in etheric form, will usually over time snap back to approximate, when they present themselves as a physical presence, to about their 33rd year of physical life.
And we wouldn't get that longevity and the same thing in any other substance, any of the other monatomic substances?
Overall, there will be some increased longevity with the iridium, with the rhodium, with some of the other substances, especially as connected to what you would call, again, the natural diet and the removal and release and flushing of toxins from the system. This alone will also enhance your ability for increased longevity. Your human body easily has the capacity within the next 15 years of your time of beginning to lay the foundations for a lifespan of about 300 years.
Do we have the actual white powder gold now?
It does exist among you here and there. Remember, we do not endorse.
No, I understand that.
But it does exist among you here and there, yes.
Some of us have that technology.
Some of you have acquired through a variety of means actual monoatomic gold, yes. Yes.
You've already answered some of the questions.
All right.
But
we are certain you will always come up with a few. Though, of course, you do not need a question to communicate with us. And many times I'll let you in on a little secret, not meaning to interrupt you. Many times, the more you make a statement, the more information we are allowed to share with you about the statement you have made.
Very good.
Just thought we would throw that out. Do continue.
The rhodium and iridium, or the powder that David Hudson has been providing to people, has been a mixture of the rhodium and iridium powder.
All right.
Would it be better if the rhodium and the iridium were separate?
No. They know what to do when they're in your body.
All right.
And again, as we have already indicated, sometimes they actually work better in concert in certain ways, as with the addition of the monoatomic chromium. So, in fact, by adding monoatomic chromium to the rhodium and iridium, it would actually be even more efficacious.
Very good. It's much easier for us to prepare the rhodium and iridium together than to separate it.
That is sufficient.
The other thing, I think you hinted about this, that would the gold be more powerful in developing our spiritual nature or our electromagnetic quality?
Yes.
Good. The other thing you mentioned, violet-colored foods would have more gold. Would beets, for example, have more gold?
It will have a combination of things in that it also exemplifies a little bit more of the red coloration than exactly the violet.
I see, yeah. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
One thing.
Yes. Just one. Keep your question monoatomic.
All right, good job. It has been, I've heard, that the iridium stimulates the metabolism and could be detrimental if you have, like, cancer and have tumors in that. Is that so?
One moment. Only, again, if the body contains certain kinds of toxins, as it does in most cancers, will too much of a monoatomic element, including iridium, cause a discordant, out-of-phase vibration. So minor amounts at first until the body adjusts, then more can be taken later if necessary, but too much at first can cause too much of an out-of-phase discordant clash within the frequencies that already exist within the body that are representative of the toxics within the cells. Yes.
Bashar?
Yes!
You talk about in phase and out of phase.
Yes.
Are we to the point in our evolution or in our medicine that we can turn out of phase organs back in phase electromagnetically and cure disease?
Yes, in fact, this is quite simplistic. Many of you know exactly how to do this, and many of you have already done this around your world.
Could you give us a specific as to how it's being done right now?
It is similar to that which is represented by the literature on your planet known as body electric. In that there is a potential set up between a positive and a negative pole on the body, the site of the disease representative of one charge, the site nearby representative of the opposite charge, and a balance created between the two electrically. Will allow there to be a readjustment using electric fields of very low amperage that will allow the organ out of phase to readjust to the overall body harmonic.
Will that affect the etheric body as well?
More it is that you are utilizing one slight aspect or attribute of the etheric body to help the physical body make an adjustment to be in more harmonic alignment with the etheric, rather than the other way around.
My understanding was that disease came from the etheric to the physical.
Yes, the template is set up within the etheric body in that sense. But as you are thus using an electric field, you are using an aspect of the etheric to realign the physiological in that way as well. It is simultaneous. It is not that the adjustment in the physical body cures the etheric. There is a simultaneous adjustment on all levels, on both levels simultaneously.
Will the medical community allow this to be brought in soon?
I don't know. It's your medical community. You tell me. It's your planet. What do you want to do about it?
Thank you.
Thank you. What?
Sure, I'm taking the Vitalik tea, which is not the powder, it's just a natural substance.
All All right, understood.
And I've taken 5 or 6 bottles, and I take the regular 2 ounces, which is suggested on the label. I'm wondering now that I've had that much, if it would be suitable to increase the dosage to a little bit more.
Such as?
Well, 3 ounces, or on the other hand...
You can go up to 4 if you wish.
Is it a good idea to skip a day now and then, let the body rest from it?
One moment. We are scanning. Take, for 7 days, take a day off. Take 2, take 3. Take for 7 days, take a day off. Take 2, take 3.
You mean like rest on Sunday? Yes, sir.
Like rest on Sunday.
But it's okay to increase my dosage.
4 ounces maximum.
Thank you.
For now. You will find that there will be a time when 7 ounces will assist you. No more than that will you really need. Ever.
Bashar?
Yes.
If our legislature should decide to fluoridate all the water in California, what will be the effect upon our health?
There will be a variety of effects depending upon the individuals involved. You will, however, find that many individuals will actually start to be incapable of ingesting certain substances adequately. You may find that there will be in some individuals a listlessness. You will find that some difficulties with immune systems may start to crop up. One moment. There may even be discovered, as we scan a parallel probable reality, that within about 10 years after fluoridation has been occurring to certain individuals, that they will be incapable of manufacturing certain chemicals in the body ever again. Does that answer your question?
Yes, unfortunately.
Oh, well, all right, then we take it back. Yay.
I have a substance here in a bag that's a plant from Central America that is been known to is stabilizing the sugar, if a person has diabetes and stuff like that, and also has rejuvenating effects.
Is there an appellation to this plant?
What's that mean?
What's its name?
That's what I don't know. I want to ask you.
Is it Antarctica?
I don't know the name of the plant.
Tahiti? Epirexo?
What? Are you naming names of plants?
They're all three the same name. Same plant.
He has suggested Paldorco.
No, it's not.
He has suggested a few other things.
No, it's not any of those things.
How did you come by this?
It was sent to me.
Why?
To test it out, and it was
To test it out in what way?
to make it into a tea, and it can be used orally, and it can be put on the body to remove scars, to grow hair, to improve vision.
And how did you come to initiate this connection?
Where I got it?
Yes.
I got it from someone in my family who brought it to me.
Have they used it?
Yeah, a lot of people have used it. It's been tested on about 30 to 60 cases of people who are on insulin, and they're off their insulin.
Then why do you need to ask me?
Because I don't know what it is. And also, I just wanted to know if you had any more information to identify it.
One moment. 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 What is its coloration?
It looks like a root, and it's dark brown, and when you boil it, the water turns red, like it also has high rhodium, is what I'm thinking. And it looks like bark. You want to hold it?
No. One moment. What area on your planet, in your city, do you live?
Do I live?
That is the question. Where do you live?
I live kind of between Beverly Hills, Westwood, and Van Nuys, on the top of the hill. I don't know where
You know, a city here?
no, I don't.
You are in your general area that you call the City of England.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
That is adequate.
Oh, thank you.
One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. Two places can identify this for you. One is what you would call natural food stores that carry a large selection of natural herbs. One would be directly the idea of an herbalist. There is, in proximity in several locations around your city, such people. One moment. Have you taken to any of them for identification this substance?
No.
Why?
I was asked not to.
Why?
That's what I don't really understand why.
Take it.
Thank you.
Always, and now we see why the door is closed.
Yes.
Always, you are allowed to know what you're doing. Seek knowledge. Do not blindly allow yourself to be the purveyor and conveyor of any such idea that you do not feel a connection to nor know what you're doing. Seek that knowledge. The process of doing so is important for you. All right? Thank you. Yes. One moment. You can be next.
You talked about the frequency of gold, and I wondered if you could interpret that in terms of a specific frequency that I could relate to with the type of instruments I have.
In different combinations, there may be slightly different frequencies, but you will find that the monoatomic gold matrix frequency is somewhere around what you would call 244,000 cycles per second. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and what would that be in hertz?
Cycles per second is hertz.
244,000 hertz.
All right? Anything else?
Is that safe to project into a person?
In what way?
Well, what I was thinking about was with what's called a scalar, a field, like a...
No.
No?
No. However, if you wish to take a very, 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 very low amperage magnetic field and fluctuate it at that frequency, that will be of some benefit. All you need is a hint. All you need is a suggestion. You do not need powerful fields in that way that will overwhelm the magnetic field of the body. The idea is that the body has the ability to understand how to synchronize naturally. All you need to do, in a sense, is give it a hint. As long as the hint is pure, as long as there is no other frequency to pay attention to, it'll get the point. And it will adapt to it. So it does not take overwhelming energy, just very little of the correct frequency.
Also, thank you very much.
Okay.
In combination, if you, when we were talking about before, the glass, the substance turned into glass,
okay.
And if that was put into a shape, a format of a geometric, high geometric form, and with the combination of the harmonics of sound, specific sound harmonics,
yes.
Would that, can you give me an idea of that combination of what geometric forms would have the highest vibration?
Any of what you call the regular solids. And thus you will find that there are different frequencies, different tones, different harmonics that will go hand in hand, as you say, with those different regular solids. You understand that? The regular solids?
No, I don't know.
Then you have some homework to do.
That specific term, regular solids?
Do you understand your term platonic solids? Tetrahedron.
Yes.
Cube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now you have it.
Like all high sacred geometric formats.
And specifically, as you have asked, the regular solids.
Oh, thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes, it does.
Now understand something else.
Yes.
When you create a cube of such material,
yes,
and when you create a tetrahedron of such material, you will find that with certain harmonic frequencies, they will transmute, not that it will necessarily appear this way to you visually, but etherically, energetically, they will transmute into two hyperdimensional regular solids, which is the tetragrammaton for the tetrahedron, which is an inverted tetrahedron inside the tetrahedron you see, and a tesseract for the cube, or a hypercube. So, play with that, all right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, one thing more. Understand that in terms of electromagnetic pulsation frequencies, the threshold of going from what you call your third density dimensional reality to fourth is approximately 144,000 cycles per second. Going from your physical reality to total etheric, non-physical reality, the threshold is 333,000 cycles per second. Individuals on your planet that you call ascended masters are functioning somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 cycles per second. Let that be a guiding clue for you in the work that you will do. All right? Thank you. Okay.
A year ago, last July, I was driving on the freeway approaching this area, and for about 10 minutes of my drive, I observed a rectangle with sharp definition of white light in the sky. And because of how the movement of my car was in relation to this rectangle and the changing scenery, I determined that this rectangle was approximately at least half a mile wide by a quarter mile high. It was stable in relation to certain scenery that allowed me to scale it like that. And it stayed in a fixed condition, in a fixed spot, for about 10 minutes as I approached it. And then it imploded onto itself, and I don't know whether the correct term would be behind it, but there was then visible a very shiny metallic object that I perceived to be a vehicle of some sort.
Yes, you saw a ship shift dimensions. That's what it looks like when our ships shift dimensions.
It was very shiny.
Okay.
And
but what we mean is the change from one form to another is what happens when a ship translates from one dimension to another, because different dimensions will have different representations of those kinds of vehicles.
I see. So the large rectangle is actually shifting dimensions.
The large rectangle, in a sense, was a ship in one dimension. The other shape was the same ship in another dimension.
Oh, that's beautiful. Is there any other insight you could give as to the origin of that ship?
Of that particular ship?
Well,
is that what you mean?
That's my first question. And if you have any other comments, that would be appreciated.
All right. Before we answer, we will ask you a question. May we?
Yes.
Why, thank you. I always like to ask permission.
Thank you.
You have somewhere nearby your area, I believe, what you would call a large international airport, yes?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
There are many planes taking off from that airport at different times of day, heading in different directions, yes?
Yes.
There was one right now heading due east. Who's on that plane? Can you tell me? There are times when we can perceive the occupants of certain craft But if you think we have the capability of keeping track of everyone's movements, guess again. Now, one moment. We will do what you call in your language a bank shot through you to see what connectional vibrations may have called forth a synchronistic encounter, and thus perhaps through that back door we may be able to ascertain the vibrational connection for you. All right? Thank you. One moment. One moment. One moment. It was an energy consciousness presentation, not exactly what you would call a true physical ship, though thou has the ability to present itself that way. You will find that it is an Arcturus-type energy, an Arcturus-type gate. And you were simply perceiving it as best as your physiological mentality could perceive the idea of that projection of consciousness. In that sense, it was observing you, but it is not really a physiological ship. But it did change form. It did present itself in the best way that you would be able to make sense out of what you were seeing. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes.
One moment. Do you have children?
No.
Are you about to?
No.
Do you have any plans to?
I hadn't thought that I would have children through my own body, although at some point I'm going to adopt.
I see. One moment. Is there some time frame in which you feel this would be more appropriate?
Adopting?
Yes.
I've been getting the feeling to do it as soon as...
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Then that is what we are picking up upon the children.
Yes.
It's almost time.
Okay.
And the child will be of that energy.
Wonderful.
It'll be someone that you used to know. And not on Earth either. You understand?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes!
What frequency are you coming through tonight at this time?
At this particular moment, 237,000 cycles per second. Now 215,000 cycles per second. Now 254,000 cycles per second. Will that do?
Sure.
Okay.
How is our collective frequency in this room tonight? What is it vibrating at?
The collective frequency, 287,000 cycles per second. 217,000 cycles per second.
And when Moses was producing when they were producing the monatomics back there, what process did they use to get the gold? And it was said that he was on a higher form of the monatomics than...
You must understand that they had available to them technology not of your world.
And could they precipitate it like Sai Baba?
Moses could, yes.
And was it the gold?
It was many things, at different times, for different reasons. All right?
And can the monatomics be projected radionically?
Again, the field around any monoatomic element can be tapped into. In that sense, to some degree, the concept of radionics may apply, but not exactly in the way that you're using the idea on your planet at this time. More the idea that simply the exposure to the field is more apropos to the idea of allowing your body to pick up upon the particular frequency that it needs to key to. If you want to talk about the transference of frequency energy in that way, that would be a more direct route than the idea that you call radionically, which involves an intermediary step, which is really unnecessary.
And you recommended corn oil. Is oil that's stored in a glass container, does the photon, does the light destroy it?
It will depend. It will depend. It will depend. And again, nothing really should be utilized after the 72-hour potency field anyway.
So you're talking about fresh?
Fresh, fresh, fresh. The order of the day. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Clarification, Bashar.
Clarification.
With regards to the potential negative effects that the iridium rhodium could have on a cancer patient, I didn't get what you were saying.
Small amounts first, so that the large amounts do not clash with the amount of toxic vibration in the system, so that the small amounts can over time, even a short time, allow the body to acclimate and assist in removing the toxins that have the discordant vibrations, whereas too much all at once would be overwhelming to the toxic vibrations. They would clash, there would be a disharmony, and there could be damage to the system.
So the quantity would depend upon the seriousness of the illness.
And even the type of illness, and even the amount of toxins in the body in general, and in leaving your body open to different kinds of opportunistic diseases. It will have to be determined as to what kind of toxins the body contains. But again, if you start small enough, in general, it will be efficacious.
Does the HIV virus produce AIDS?
No. It is, however, an amplifier of the condition once it has taken root, as you say. However, the idea of the causation of what you recognize as the AIDS is simply the amount of different kinds of toxins that exist in your environment from a variety of sources. Electromagnetic, stress, food, water, pollution, so on and so forth, all combine to lower the resistance of the immunological system of the body. The HIV virus takes advantage of the lowered system and amplifies it and makes itself appear in many cases to be a causation, but in that sense it is simply one of the opportunistic organisms, but it has a particular talent for amplifying certain conditions that make then those conditions look like it was the cause. But it is not. Some of your scientists and medical practitioners now know this, but there are also those who simply continue to perpetuate the idea of the HIV connection for their own monetary gain. However, that should come as no surprise. There will be but a few moments remaining for this communication.
Bashar?
Yes.
Quick question. Talked earlier about the monatomics, that it's good for vision and the rods and the cones of the eyes.
Yes.
What's our best natural food source for that?
You have already, again, to some degree, recognized that there are those food sources also rich in selenium will carry with them also the monoatomics that will be good for the eyes, and also, as you have in what you call your mythology to some degree, which has some truth, the concept again, ideally, of the carrot to some degree. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. For reasons other than direct affectation of the eyes, celery will in general act as a cleansing medium to allow other things to take better effect. Then, after that purification, combination of what you call the carrot and the spinach and the parsley is good for that as well as we have said, those things that contain high amounts of selenium. One moment. One moment. Different types of berries will also aid and assist in the sharpening of the senses in a variety of ways. One moment. One moment. One moment. At this time, extend now to each and every one of you our deep appreciation in allowing us to communicate through this conduit in this way at this time. Energies are shifting. Ideas are blooming. allow yourselves to know your own self, your own instincts, your own intuitions, your own imagination. This does not mean you cannot do your research as well. All avenues are valid. But go first with the strongest thing that represents your highest degree of excitement, curiosity, creativity, and joy. It will always, unerringly lead you in the correct direction as long as you bring with you no need for absolute expectation that the outcome must be as you think it ought to be. Full intention, acting on your highest vision with the greatest degree of joy you can, with no expectation that the outcome should be a particular way, is the perfect balanced state in which to receive all the information you need exactly when you need it. We thank you at this time, and now must simply break contact. But we leave with you our love unconditionally, and we bid you to remember that your reality is becoming more fluid, more plastic. You are waking up and remembering that you are dreaming. That's what your physical reality is. You are now finally beginning to wake up in the physical dream. We thank you for allowing us to dream you into our reality and for dreaming us into yours. Good day.
Thank you.